Hey there, welcome. Hey, welcome back. I know it's been a while. So, today we're adopting the variable point system and making it fit into 4.5.9. Turtle Rescue NES has made a detailed walkthrough for earlier versions of NESmaker. Today I'm going to show you how to use this version to do your own for your projects. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we consult the notes. The notes, I wrote down a little like synopsis and crib sheets for what we're going to do here. And what we're going to do is first we're going to ask ourselves, when a monster dies, what do we want to happen? Well, we want after it dies, we want it to create a number that shows the score increase, and then it floats up, and then it disappears. Right, so let's plan that out. Monster death frames or time, if not consistent, can still have the monster on the screen when the score appears. Which means that if you don't time it right or do the right method, you could have it spawning the score when the monster actually dies while it's still doing its little death animation. We don't want that. We want it to spawn afterward. Okay, the object created should have no collision, and it should disappear after a short period of time. So it floats up a little bit and then it just disappears. Okay, so you want it the color of the HUD or the player. For this example, I've created it using the player colors. I might change it up with the HUD later if I feel like I just want a consistent colored HUD, like having white basically as the HUD letters or something, because that's what I currently have. So the next thing we want, do you want it to be that color of the HUD? Okay, so then the next thing, I just left that blank. I don't know why I was thinking. And then you want it to, it should move upwards and then disappear. So the next thing would be you want it to add to the score. Alright, so the HUD's white. So we use right here. Um oh, sorry. Right here on the screen. The HUD uses this color set. It's gray, gold, and white. So if I was to be in a different, it would be different. So for this, I'm currently going to use the players. Because what it does is it draws based on How do I explain this? It's based on the object palette, not the screen um palette. So like on the screen, you have those palettes for the tiles. Then you have these palettes for the objects. Currently, I'm going to have it use this palette, although this is probably not changing either. And what I meant by the same as the HUD is because if you look, it's the same colors as the HUD currently, though the HUD might change. I might not ever change this because this is our knife weapon. I might have it be different for, um, you know, the character of Anne. She might have a different weapon or different colors. For this also, because like this is different for her. It's this colors. So if I keep the color for it to be the flesh tone or whatever that we're using, it's not as bad as a difference between the two, so that's what I'm using. Like I said, I could have made it a different color for, make it match the HUD. And I can go back eventually and change that, but that's not important right now. So for now, that's the way that is. Um, so first we need to create a script that moves the object up. Okay. So I've already created that script for us. If you go to your AI behavior, what I did was I assigned it to AI behavior 5. So if you look here, I labeled 5 move up. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I did that. I'm going to go back and show you that. Under script settings, AI behaviors, AI behavior 5 to move up. So we're going to edit that, and I can show you what that script looks like. This is what the script looks like. Transfers X into the accumulator, stores into the accumulator, what's in the accumulator to temp A. So X is in the accumulator, that's stored in temp A. Okay, so it's loading into the accumulator the number for up, transferring that accumulator into Y. It's loading into the accumulator the direction, storing that, temp B, loading the face table ordered, storing that, temp C. It's going to start moving using temp A. That's the object, which is X, which is transferred into temp A. Direction. And this is the action step. If you really wanted, you could probably put a line in here to make the action step different, but we're not messing with that. Change facing direction. Temp A. The object. And then the facing table. Temp C. Alright. So using that, you then want to create an object. This is following what Turtle Rescue wrote. You're going to want to put these in the game tiles. So if you remember from previous videos, if you look at my game tiles, when I was doing the credits, put these numbers in here. I also put this, and I put this. This was used for credits, and these were used for credits. So now we have another use for them. Alright, he's saying that they're saying what you do here is you create that script for moving up. Now you gotta create the object for the points. Game object. I'm using a game object. It's a lot easier to use a game object because you don't. Game objects are on every screen. If you go to any screen on here, you could right click, go to place monster, and you'll see a list. These are all your game objects. Oh, sorry, hold on. You'll see a list. These are all your game objects on this list when you right click. It'll start with object number 1 or object number 0, and which is the player, and it'll go all the way through. It'll even have, up to 15 on here. This one. So we're using this one. That would be 0E. 0F would be this one. So what you do is you make an animation for 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, and then one for nothing. Okay? And then you assign them. Every direction will be 100. Every direction is 200, 300, 400, 5, 6, 7. No points. Don't give it a flag. We're not using bits currently. Bits could be used and will probably be used in the future, but currently we don't have any use for them. Make sure it's got ignore gravity so it can move up. For no points, you're going to have animation no points. It's your first one, 0. So when you have your experience set to 0, you get 0 points for killing the monster. The action is null because it's not doing anything. It's destroy me. It's destroy me. Timer can be whatever as long as it's short. You can have it on 1, have it on 0, have it on 2 like the others. The important part is that it's ignore gravity and it's destroy me, and that it happens in a quick fashion. You could also have it on the animation destroy me. You have the animation even set to 1 or 0 or something, so it's quick. Alright, animation type 100. You're going to have every single one do the same thing. So it's going to be 100 on this one. You move up, destroy me, and then this is loop. There's no animation, so no speed, and loop, it doesn't matter. Have ignore gravity, and the timer be 2, so it's really short. You're going to have that for everything. So 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, and 700. The bounding box, I gave it nothing. No bounding box at all. If you really want to give it a bounding box, I suggest, if you're going to give it a bounding box, something really small. But then again, you don't need one. The speed, you're going to have, first of all, you're going to have solid object reaction null, edge object reaction null, speed be 16, acceleration be 16, jump speed be 0. Okay, once you save that monster's created, you can name it variable points. I named it monster points for mine. Okay, you could test this object by just creating a screen. Doesn't matter what screen you're on. Just place the monster, place your variable points, or place whatever you named it, monster points, and it should go off. Now what's going to happen is, because you have no points as your first one, it shouldn't show anything, so you're not going to see anything, right? It did work though. Just watch what happens. I'm going to change this really quick. So when you have it as its base, it's going to be 100. And it's going to move up because we made that AI. Timer 2, destroy me, kind of like the others, just to test it. There it goes. Alright, so we're going to change that now. Put it back the way I wanted it to be originally anyway. Alright, so that's just testing it on the screen. Now, the coding. Alright, so there's the move up code. Now that we've created that, create the object to be the number system. We created that. We tested it. I'm going to use a method similar to my health system. Alright, so if you go and you check your create state, that'll be in your subroutines. So right here, subroutines, create state. You'll notice your create state by default, I believe, is in your mod arcade platform base subroutines folder. It's labeled do create state, add extra variables, arcade platform base. Yeah, it's a mouthful. I haven't reassigned mine yet, so we can do that. So you go and you find that file right here, subroutines, this one right here. You're going to copy this to your project folder, subroutines folder, right here. Now we can rename it now too. Alright, so I'm going to rename it. Do create state. I guess just the name of my project. So Nightmare Castle. $2024. Woo, 2024. And this was what we did before. This is what you need to add. Normally you'd have to add this line, but this line's already here. So this line you could imagine is just here. It's just already active. It's just doing this, doing this. The space doesn't have to be here. I just put it in there so it looks like it's showing the two different things. Like this is your the health. And this is experience. Funny fact is, doing this and the next thing we're going to do, you could add experience to your game in your own way. Alright, so we're going to assign this script and test it. Alright, so now that you've assigned it, you gotta make sure you have object worth. That's something I think I forgot to mention in here. Alright, so what we're going to do is you need to go to your object variables. You notice here we put object health, object vulnerability. We have object flags here. You're going to want to add object underscore worth, like that. So think of object health. This is how many points you get for killing a monster. And you're going to want to put it is enabled. All right, next step. I'm going to edit the timer end script near line 161. So we go to the timer end script. Yeah, let's go there. You'll remember that's in the subroutines folder. Timer end script. All right, 191. So right here. Oh, 161. Yikes. Oh yeah, that's what I said, 161. Anyway, 161 is your destroy me. So normally I think it's something like this. You're going to want to put a bunch of stuff in there. A whole bunch of stuff. Alright, and that stuff does the following. Destroys the object. Right now it's checking the object flag. Is this a monster? When these are reversed like this, kind of the opposite. So it's saying if it is this, basically, it is a monster. It's just like, I don't know how to explain it, how these basically come up almost like reverse bit. But this bit would be that. So it's saying if it is a monster, it does a bunch of stuff. If it's not a monster, jump to not monster. I had to do this because it's so long, it was doing branch out of range. Or just to prevent a branch out of range, basically. Um, so not monster is down here, and all it does is the RTS. Alright, so if it is a monster, it's going to check the object type, check the object's worth. Then it's going to give you points. Eight places. When you're doing score, um, this argument, when you're adding a value, is going to be how many places it has. So over here, when we have our score, you'll notice that we did have 8 of them. If you're in the HUD, score has 8. So that's going to be 8. Yeah, so my score, that's the variable you're adding to in the HUD. Var temp points. Oh look, that's another new variable. We're going to have to make a new variable. This method is part of TurtleRescueNES's method. They created var temp points. So using that variable we created, it's going to store the accumulator information from here, put it here, and it's going to put the object, or it's going to put the number in the hundreds place. Because when you're adding a value, it's the ones and then the hundreds. Let's see here. Then you have to update the HUD element. If you're using the high score system, you have to at least have the update high score value macro that we made. How many places your high score is, which is going to be, same as score. What you're taking it from, my score, and what you're putting it in, my high score. You're comparing the two. If my score is greater than my high score, you add to it. Then you update the HUD element. If you're going to play a sound effect, you would play a sound effect here. And then this is the stuff that creates the object. You're getting the origin point. the self center, the origin location for the other, which so this is the X, this is the Y, self center for the Y, screen type. Then there we are again with the worth. So that's the object it's going to create. So here's the object. Zero E. Here is the object worth, which is what step is it going to create it in? Action step 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. So what you're doing is you go into your monster, your experience right here. 0 will make it no experience, 1 will make it 100, 2 will make it 200, 3 will make it 300. This is what facing direction it is. So it's always going to create this object facing direction. I believe down is the default. So I think it's always going to be down. They're always going to be the same, so it doesn't matter what the facing direction is. You could change this number and it'll to one of those directions and it won't have any impact on it because they're all the same. Then it just places it back in the stack and transfers back into X. And then it just goes into returns you back to the subroutine. So it does all that. But now we're going to show it all working. So when you kill the monster, if it's a monster, it should be showing update your score, update the high score if there's a difference, and it's creating this object that shows the score number based on object worth. So if you do all that and you have that new variable, you got to make sure that your hurt monster script is also changed. So I include my hurt monster script just to make sure. To have this in here. Here, let me show that. Hurt monster script. I'm gonna have this in here, and it's gonna check the next action step after it checks the death action. Do skip hurting this object. Don't skip hurting this object. Do skip hurting this object. So this is for the health and making sure that it turns into that 7 animation. Now that 7 animation on the monster is the death animation. And you'll notice there it has destroy me. That's why we're making sure that you just have a similar hurt monster script. If you followed the previous videos, your hurt monster script should be really similar, just slightly different. So that animation is going to play when you kill the monster. And then it's going to do the timer end script, destroy object, check the flag, it's a monster, do all that stuff. Alright, so let's show it. That was 300. Let's change it to 200. So remember, this is how it's set up. Height 1, width 2. This is the hundreds place, and then there's like the ones, tens, etc. That was the zeros I chose to use for it. I thought they looked closer to the numbers that I used, so I used those, kind of make it look a little different. And so you're following this tutorial. This tutorial goes up to 700 points per monster in your game. It's following the tutorial Turtle Rescue NES did. If you want to add or expand to it, there's room for expansion to higher numbers or other variables, but for now this is complete. Eventually I might expand on it for bosses or something else.